Take another good, education. Another area where cash incentives have recently been used. In many American cities where there are underachieving students from poor backgrounds, school districts are experimenting with the use of cash incentives to motivate students to study. They offer monetary payment for higher grades, $50 for an A, $40 for a B, for high test scores. They've tried this in New York, Washington, Chicago. In Dallas, they offer third graders, young children, $2 for each book they read. Now let's take a quick survey about whether you would favor, suppose you're the head of the school system in a city. There are students who are struggling. Someone comes with the proposal to pay children to get good grades or to read books. Take the $2 per book. How many would be in favor of trying? And how many would be opposed? This time it's more evenly divided, though I noticed a few people didn't vote. Let's hear from those who object first. Why would you object? Yes?
Because I think there are better ways.
There are better ways.
There are much better ways. I mean, the teacher should read to the children and engage them. And I just think money's displacing the much better act of the teacher, enlivening the child's mind and drawing them towards the book naturally, I'm sure they can get from the library.
So money is displacing the higher pursuit of the teacher inspiring the child to read.
Well, the teacher may be confused even as to their role. It may confuse the teacher as to what they're doing because money is now in there. The teacher's very clear about what they have to do. But if you add another thing in there, well, is that supposed to work rather than what the teacher has to do?
Are you worried that it would confuse the teacher or also that it would confuse the students?
Well, I think it would confuse me. It would confuse the relationship between the educator and the child.
Who else? What do you say?
I think I have a similar opposition to both scenarios, the weight loss and the paying children to read, and that if you introduce money into it, it sort of diminishes their personal achievement for the benefit of a kind of majority. So kind of society would benefit from people losing weight, so then it saves money, or for students reading more books so that overall grade standards are improved. But to that individual person, the reward that they get for having done it themselves, for their own reasons.
For their own reasons?
Yes.
So are we back to the idea of intrinsic reasons?
Yes, for their own sense of achievement rather than because everybody else would benefit as a result.
All right, and let's see if there's someone on the other side who can reply to these objections. Having heard the objections, those who support the practice, yes, what would you say?
I don't think intrinsic reasons is a useful word. I think it wouldn't work either way. If it worked, we should do it, but it wouldn't work because I don't believe you can incentivize passion and gifts, and that's something which, is deep in, human nature, and you can't really put a price on that. And I think it's something which is really hard to articulate, and it's kind of uncanny, it's strange. You know it within you. You know there's certain things that, you shouldn't pay for and, should be, a gift in a sense. And I think reading is one of them.
Reading is one of them. So we're here trying to discuss how we can figure out or reason through what goods are of that kind.
Yeah. You're trying to put a contract on a gift, basically.
All right, who disagrees? We've heard some reasons to oppose this policy. who's prepared to defend the policy against the objections that you've heard? Yes.
I would have problems with the government having anything to do with paying anyone anything, because I don't think they do it well. But
even if it worked, suppose it worked.
Pigs could fly. You know, reading is a skill. Laying bricks is a skill. Tying knots is a skill. We all get paid to learn skills. So I have no objection to someone paying and incenting someone to pay to learn a skill. And if you really think of the interchange between a teacher and a student, the teacher is giving recognition to that student. Recognition is the currency. And if $2 is the currency that works, knock yourself out.
All right, let's hear a reply from, what was it? Yeah. You said before we shouldn't put a price on reading. What's your name? Roxana. What would you say in reply?
If it worked, you know, I would be all for it. But personally, I just don't think it would work because it's just one of those things that falls within the realms of passion, and I don't think you can. If it worked, I would be all for it. If I could give my kid if I had children and if I could give them £2 and they would read, you know, Tolstoy, I would pay them every single day.
I think. Wait, Roxanne. I think Tolstoy would require more than £2.
Probably. But if I could, I would do it. But I
All
don't.
of War and Peace?
Yeah.
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 Okay. Yes.
I'm surprised that people think it doesn't work. I think I'm aware, and I think most of us are aware of a few schools, not in this continent, but in other continents, that actually incentivize children to come to school by giving them food. And it's a huge incentive for children to come to school, from there to learn specific skills, which later on takes them through life. And I think by judging the kind of incentive for kind of a bigger cause, which might be kind of learning how to read in general, or learning a book, from one book to a second book, from a second book to more complex books, is if it works, and it does work, we should do it.
Yes.
Having worked in a school that had a high level of social deprivation, I would be in favor of giving teachers this as one of an arsenal to encourage children who come from homes that may not be like ours, that don't have books, that don't have parents that read, that don't always get to school. And if this is something that can help a teacher reach children, I would include it in the arsenal of tools that they need to make this good happen.
All right. I want to step back from these two debates, and thank you for all of those who have joined in the second round, to notice two features of the arguments we've heard. One way of addressing these questions is to say, well, will it work? And people have different views about whether or not it will work. But the argument is the test of whether it's appropriate is whether it will work. And then there's another line of argument we've heard that says whether it will work is not the only question. There's also the question of making value judgments, drawing on Alistair's phrase, about intrinsic goods, about goods that should not be priced, about manipulating people to do the right thing for the wrong reason, about teaching the wrong lesson. So the objections of principle have to do with the worry that in cases like health and education, monetary incentives may crowd out or corrupt non-monetary, intrinsic goods worth caring about. I should mention the results, so far at least, of these experiments. In New York City, the paying children for getting good grades had no effect on improving the grades. In Dallas, though, the $2 for each book did lead the young students to read more books. it also led them to read shorter books. But the larger question is, what will become of these students when they're not being paid? Will the reading continue? Will the habit take? That's the idea of adding to the arsenal. Or will the wrong habit have been inculcated, namely, the idea that reading is for the sake of making money? A friend of mine pays his young children $1 for each thank you note they write. I've received some of these thank you notes. And I can tell by reading them that they were written under duress. My wife and I look askance at this policy, and we wonder how these kids will turn out. The hopeful scenario is that by writing thank you notes for pay, they'll get in the habit of writing thank you notes. They will eventually absorb the real reason for writing thank you notes, so that when they're no longer being paid, they'll carry on writing them, and they will learn the virtue of gratitude. The less optimistic scenario is the lesson they will learn is that thank you notes are a chore, a form of piecework to be done for money. And if that's what they learn, then when the money stops, so will the thank you notes. Their moral education will have been corrupted, and they'll find it difficult to learn the virtue of gratitude.